Hello and happy Thursday. Thank you all for joining the Alumni Society today for the latest installment of our Microlearning Series, which provides actionable advice and insights from members for members. I'm Christina Merrill, Member and Community Engagement and Communications Manager here at the Alumni Society and a proud graduate of Columbia. Today, I'm happy to welcome Miguel Paredes. Miguel is the Vice President of AI and Data Science of Albertsons Companies. Miguel, it's great to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Thank you. And then also, time permitting, we'll open the floor for questions from the audience. So if you have a question for Miguel, please feel free to go ahead and drop it in the chat and we'll try and get to it. So let's dive right in. Miguel, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do today.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you everyone who's here. I was born and raised in Peru to a Peruvian dad and American mom. I actually met in California. And I'm a proud alumni of MIT. I had 2 masters and a PhD there in applied AI, and also an alumni of Harvard Business School where I did the general managers program. And currently I work as an executive in the AI space, and I've been doing that for the last 10 years. And I also advise a few AI venture capital firms, and I'm an angel investor and advisor to startup as well.
Very nice. You're nice and busy. So tell us, what is artificial intelligence? Let's start with the basics here. Tell us what is AI in a nutshell?
Yeah. So AI is both an academic interdisciplinary field, but also technology. It started in academia in the early 50s and specifically within computer science. And there's this question around how can we have computers, or the advent of computers at that time, think or do computations like humans. So that's where artificial intelligence started boiling up. At the same time, it's become a widespread technology, in part thanks to ChatGPT. And November 30 last year, it's released into the world. People became aware of it. And basically, AI is also this technology that takes different forms and produces different things, similar to how humans interact and do certain things. AI can do the same thing. An operational definition of AI is a computer or something that's not human that is acting in an apparent intelligent manner.
Perfect. And then on that note, what is generative artificial intelligence?
Yes, so Gen AI is this new paradigm in AI, and everyone's hearing about AI thanks to this new paradigm. While traditional AI was typically focused on predicting or classifying or identifying patterns in data, for example, predicting the price of home prices, or classifying an email as spam or not, or identifying certain conditions within a cluster of data. Gen AI is all about generating things. It is trained. It is a lot of data is put into these algorithms, and then based on all the data it's seen, it can generate similar things to that data in music, in text, in voice, in images, in videos. Gen AI takes a vast amount of data, learns from this data, and then responds to prompts or instructions or questions from users to generate something.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And then what are some examples of Gen AI?
The typical example everyone knows about, or most people have heard, is ChatGPT and these text systems where you basically say, hey, what is this? Or like, can you write a poem for me? Or tell me what would be the best way to solve for this problem. I'm sure all of you guys have seen LinkedIn posts asking people showing the questions they asked ChatGPT and amazed at this. One of the ones I liked the most was someone who posted a video of how to ask ChatGPT to produce the Visual Basic code for a basic set. The instruction was the following. I need to create a 5-slide PowerPoint deck on artificial intelligence, produce the code so that I can just put it in PowerPoint and produce the deck for me with content, no placeholders. So ChatGPT spit out the code, something called Visual Basic code. You put it in PowerPoint, you execute it, and PowerPoint automatically have that deck, saving many hours. That, like, I want to start using that because I'm terrible at writing PowerPoints. Another typical example is these image generators, for example, DALL-E or Midjourney or Stable Diffusion, where you basically put in a prompt, you put an instruction for something that you want it to generate. For example, I want a llama riding a rocket to Mars, and it'll actually produce this. Obviously, these are getting much better, but that's another example of generative AI.
Fantastic examples. Thank you. And then why is generative AI having a boom right now? You know, what's going on exactly?
So I think it all started, for at least in society and our being conscious of what's going on, November 30 last year. ChatGPT was released, OpenAI, a company that was founded, among others, between Elon Musk, released this software, this system. And in 5 days, it got 1 million users. The interesting thing about ChatGPT was a product, simple product that just allowed you to put in a prompt or a question. And up to that point, users were used to Googling things. So you put in something and there was many answers, someone was sponsors, and it was like a cognitive load and task to find what was the right answer or which one was better. ChatGPT just gave you one. There's some pitfalls there. We'll talk about that in a bit, but people really like that. They're like, oh, this is a different experience. This is something different than I'm used to be receiving. I really like this. Word of mouth, 2 months after, 100 million users. This is crazy. So people started talking about Gen AI, and not only ChatGPT, but all these tools and like the image generators, et cetera. This put Gen AI on the map. People started realizing, hey, AI has developed so much and it's pretty advanced. Now, while the boom is new, the underlying technologies have been in the making for decades. And I would say in 2012 is when the big breakthrough came, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, when the underlying technology, or one of the underlying technologies, which is called neural networks, became popular and became feasible because there had been a reduction in computation and storage costs. So this made this special type of technology feasible. Before it took too long, there was not enough data. So the combination of having more data, having more compute power at lesser cost, and having it be in the cloud, so ubiquitous to many people and accessible, that made a huge foundation for Gen AI today.
Fantastic, thank you. And then what are the powers of generative AI?
Yeah, if I were to do a parallel between humans and Gen AI's powers reside in its memory and its intelligence, or its brain power. It has seen so much data. It's been trained on so much data. And unlike a human, it can retain and process it all. It would take years and years and years and years and centuries for a human to be able to process everything that a large language model, which is the underlying technology of Gen AI, has been able to process. At the same time, the computational power of generative AI is extremely powerful. The amount of computations, inferences, calculations that one of these algorithms can do is simply like many, many, many brains, thousands, millions of brains put together. So there's where its power comes from. Now, this allows it to have a ton of information, tons of brain power to process it and generate things from it.
Perfect. And then what are the disadvantages or pitfalls, if you will, of generative AI? You know, from your vantage point, are there any dangers with AI if it's left unchecked?
Yes, for sure. So the pitfalls of Gen AI are that generative AI algorithms are probabilistic. They learn from data and they make predictions or classifications, or they generate things. Now, they're generating things based on many different sources of information. So maybe you guys have heard of the term hallucinations, and that Gen AI is prone to hallucinating and creating things that are not true. That is not a bug or a problem in the system. That's just a feature, and by design, it's that way. Part of the power of it is that it's seen many things and it can produce things, it can generate things. And since there's not always one only answer, it will basically grab different things and produce a most likely or probabilistic answer. If there were only one answer, it would produce only that one answer. So this is important. So can it create things that are not true? Yes. So we have to take this into account. So that's one of the dangers of AI. Now, what is even a bigger danger, I think, is garbage in, garbage out. If these algorithms have been trained on massive amount of data, there's truth in it, there's lies in it, there is bias in it, there's harm in it. So it's not the AI's fault that it's spitting out things that might be biased, prejudiced, racist, wrong. It's human beings generated that. So but there is responsibility for us and people generating these things, and we need to make sure that we're putting in the guardrails, ethical, risk, safety. Now, I do think the biggest risk, which is also the opportunity with Gen AI, is not only around what I mentioned. The biggest risk is being left behind. There's a big risk of there being a disparity and a huge difference between those who know how to use Gen AI and those who don't. So access to these tools, education on these tools is fundamental. And it'll prove, I think, a big difference between those who have opportunities and those who don't.
Fantastic. Thank you. And then I feel like you touched upon our next question, but just to make sure I'm being thorough here, how will generative AI have an effect on the way the world works?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of different ways of looking at this. One is productivity. That's kind of like probably what's the immediate short-term, medium-term value creation opportunities. And then new things. So not productivity, not doing what we're doing better, quicker, least cost, less time, but doing things differently. And I think here is the second one is where we're going to see a huge change in the world. Right now, most of the things we're seeing are productivity related, which is great. We will be able to do things quicker, less errors, etc. The PowerPoint, writing an article, so much quicker. Obviously, we need humans in the loop. We need to make sure that it's not spitting out things that are wrong, that we're putting our own tone, that is not saying things that are proprietary information, etc. But then that's just one little piece of it. The question is, what are different ways of organizing ourselves? What are different business models? What are different things that we can solve that we couldn't solve before? Those are the new things that will change the world. Similar to how electricity changed the world, I think Gen AI will help us change the world.
Excellent. And then how can leaders begin to implement generative AI to transform their businesses and or the verticals that they may that they may manage?
Yeah, I think there's a few battles, but I think most leaders already have the first half of the battle won. The first half of the battle has to do with their understanding of their business or of their problem. Like an AI or an expert in AI doesn't understand domain knowledge. They're not trained for that. They're leaders know their business, they know their problems, they know their customers, or should at least. So that's the most important part to start, because if you understand what your problem is, and then comes the second battle, learning what you can use Gen AI for, putting those glasses on. What are these glasses useful for? So then you can focus the glasses or these tools towards those problems, your P&L, your strategy, your value levers. So once you already, if you know that, how you create money, how do you create more value for your customers, stakeholders, etc., and then you understand how GN can be used and what data you need. This is part of just understanding how Gen AI is used. You need to understand what data can actually feed it. Then you can really focus the efforts on one or two quick wins that can create value.
Excellent. And then on that note, how can leaders stay informed and help their teams stay ahead of the game and informed on the latest topics in AI developments?
Yeah, there's a lot of resources out there. There's a really good course called AI for Everyone by Stanford professor Andrew Ng. This is a free course. Then he has a platform called Deep Learning AI, where there's a ton of different courses on Gen AI. I've seen that McKinsey, BCG, Accenture, all of these big consulting firms also have been spitting out free Gen AI articles and manuals for executives. There's one really good one I like from McKinsey that's called What Every CEO Should Know About Gen AI. That's a really good one. I recommend Googling it. It's called that exactly. Then there's newsletters, like The Batch is also Andrew Ng's newsletter, where he kind of like does a good summary of what's happening, because this evolves so quickly. Bill Gates, probably 5-6 months ago, had a Gates note exactly on Gen AI. So following people, Elon Musk, Gates, who are notoriously working on these things. So following people on Twitter, on LinkedIn. I use a lot like Google Tags, so I'll just like put in notifications on certain things. I would say those are probably some of the best ways.
Amazing. You've done a lot of homework on this, clearly, and it is your career. So thank you for sharing all those resources. Folks, we do have time for questions. And we actually already have one. One question from Carlos Cabrera: what is the potential effect that quantum computers can have on AI in the future?
That's a great question. It's huge. So AI is basically computers, current computers, which are not quantum, doing calculations and inferences on data, right? Quantum computers have different properties and can be extremely more powerful for certain types of high complex calculations than regular computers. So once quantum computers become more mainstream, and we already have many quantum computers, but they're still a little away. I'm not an expert, but people say 5-10 years from being in production. In theory, this will just make things quicker. Like they will be able to do calculations that today you can't do in a quicker way, more complex, which is going to be, it's going to accelerate the value creation with AI for sure.
Amazing. Thank you. Oh, I think another one came up. This is from Stephanie Pizzarillas Bokin. Are alumni associations and universities looking to help guide current students and alumni in helping shift career paths and skill sets that will be impacted by AI in coming months and years? This is a big concern besides the Terminator scenario, the employment fallout, and how society adjusts.
Yeah, that's a great question. I can't speak for all alumni societies and all universities, but I do think this is definitely a big topic. So I work a lot with Stanford, I work a lot with MIT, and several other universities in Latin America, and everyone's really thinking about Gen AI and the impact. And I think most universities that have thought this through are thinking the labor market is going to be very different. So we need to train our future alumni around these tools. There's this concept which I call AI skilling. AI scaling basically is the concept of training people not only on AI concepts, yes, that's important, and we should all learn what AI is, but on how to use these tools. Like the productivity of someone who's using Gen AI and ChatGPT and Midjourney to do things is just out of this league compared to a professional who's not using it. So this really interesting phrase, I forget who mentioned it, is that professionals in X field, X being whatever, doctors, engineers, software, whatever, lawyers, won't be replaced by AI. They will be replaced by the professionals in their field who use AI. And I think that's true.
And on that note, this question was sent directly to me. Is there anything you see that specifically impacts the Latino community as it relates to AI?
I do. And I think this is true for many communities where there's vulnerability, where there's lack of opportunities in education. This is something that worries me. My dad, like I mentioned, my dad met my mom, and his story is amazing. He came to the States from the Andes of Peru. He worked as a janitor. He worked hard, was smart, and got into Berkeley, then his PhD at UCLA. So one of these amazing stories of how education changes the world or people. There's nothing wrong with being a janitor. It's a dignifying job, but my dad wanted more. And many times Hispanics, not only Hispanics, Asians, Indians, any groups, Americans, will be working hard to put their kids through college and access opportunities they didn't have. I think that there's an opportunity to really train people who might want to do other things, but just can't because they don't have the credentials, but they're smart, they're hardworking. So I think Gen AI provides a great opportunity for us to think about how do we elevate and give opportunities for more salary, for maybe more challenging jobs for those who want it.
Amazing. And then another question that came directly to me, and this circles back to you, Miguel. What inspired you to pursue a career in AI?
That's a great question. It was luck. I did my PhD at MIT. I was studying something similar to AI, and then I got into this space, and then it became hot. But why was I inspired to go into quantitative fields? It's because of I just think there's like so technology in general, the potential for technology to change the world is huge. I had always been working on technology and how to use technology and engineering to help solve poverty. So this AI was just one instance of it, and I thought it was really cool when I was an undergrad, and I got into it then. That was kind of like my motivation, and still is. I mean, I work as an executive. It's great. It pays the bills, but I also have other hats where I'm helping. I help develop the Peru's AI strategy document, and we're training Peruvians on AI, and we're doing this in other places as well. I think there's a huge AI for good is a huge space.
Amazing. And we've got one more question that thoughts on Gen AI and structured data. Many companies are trying to use their own data, but most of it is structured.
That's a great question. I mean, yes. So Gen AI will probably have more, I don't know if this is true, but I was going to say probably have more value on unstructured data. Most companies do have structured data. I would say most companies don't have their structured data in a centralized repository or at least curated space. So even if it's unstructured or not fully structured, I think there's opportunities for Gen AI to use that information. So, for example, PDF files and just using that data or grabbing free-form text. That'd be great before even ingesting. Even if it's structured, you can throw it into a LLM, one of these Gen AI algorithms, and it still will infer and get information out of it. So I don't think that's a restriction, but I understand the question is a good question, which is, hey, a lot of companies have structured data, which brings you to the following point. There's still so much opportunity in traditional AI. Just traditional machine learning, deep learning can bring so much value. I think Gen AI has just put this on the table, which is great because it just shows the power of it.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, those are all of the questions for today. Miguel, thank you again so much for being here today and sharing your insight. You have some truly great experiences in this area. So thank you for sharing your wisdom. How can people get in touch with you?
Yes, I just posted in the chat. I don't know if it's for everyone, but oh yes, it is. I'm sorry, here. I'm just putting in my LinkedIn in there, or I put it in. So I put, you guys can find me on LinkedIn, Miguel Paredes Sadler. And there it is. They put it in there. Thank you. And that's the best way. And I'd love to connect.
Amazing. Thank you so much. To our audience, if you are interested in sharing your knowledge and insights in an upcoming Microlearning Series webinar, email us at members@thealumnisociety.com with your idea. Thank you again for joining us today. Miguel, thank you again. And everyone, have a great rest of your week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.